Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing an install video on the Voswitch Universal 100 switch panel power control system. It's waterproof, IP66 rated, programmable, 8 switches, 100 amp inline main fuse. It's got a 40 amp relay, and all the 8 circuits are rated to 30 amps apiece. This is the actual module that mounts under the hood. It's very well constructed and has a seal, keep it all waterproof. Everything's labeled in there. Relays and fuses for everything that you want to, or all the accessories that you want to wire into it. And the control panel is very robust. It's an aluminum housing, and all the buttons seem like they're definitely going to last in this mount. Although it's plastic, it feels super sturdy, and when you lock this thing down, I mean, it does not move. So I'm pretty excited about this. Let's get into the install. So I was just looking at the wiring diagram here. It looks really self-explanatory, super easy. Go ahead and show that to you guys. Hopefully you can see that. It's a very straightforward wiring process. So far, the only issue I think I'm going to run into is trying to access the pass-through through the firewall, which we've already located it. It looks like it's not going to be that big of a pain in the butt, so yeah, should be easy. Go ahead and show you guys where the wires are going to pass through here on the 2021 Crosstrek. They pass through in the same spot, most of them do, or most of the newer ones. There's this flap here that lifts up and gives you access through the firewall. You can actually get through that. When I first looked at this wiring harness down here was actually taped to this flap. But I cut the tape off of there because it doesn't look like it needs to be there. Anyway, after looking around underneath the hood for a place to put this, I think it's going to work if I put it right here. The plan is to put a couple of bolts through it to hold it on that side, and this side there's nothing to mount it to, so I think in addition to those 2 bolts, I'm going to get some of this flex tape, and I'm going to stick it to the bottom of that and stick it to the top of the fuse cover, and hopefully that'll hold it in place, but we'll see. I was looking around to see where I could mount this thing, and I don't want to mount it here because that'll block my heads-up display, and I definitely don't want to mount it on top of there because then I won't be able to see out the windshield. So I think the only logical place to mount it is going to be over here. I don't really want to drill holes in my dash, but it is what it is. That's kind of the only place to mount it. So let's get it done. Okay, went ahead and got that mounted. It looks pretty good. The screws aren't super long, so it's a little flimsy on there, but I think that's gonna hold. If it doesn't, I'll end up putting a little bit longer screws in there. And then the plan is to run the wires from here and then hopefully down the weather strip and then over and underneath to the access point. Okay, so for this part, I know that we need to get the switch module power wire through the firewall, and this lead wire that is going to go to a ignition switched fuse jumper. So I attached those to a long zip tie, and I'm going to use those to fish through the firewall. So let's go ahead and try that. Okay, so going in underneath the dash, looking up here, there's this module here for the gas pedal. Go ahead and unplug that and get that out of the way. And this right here is actually where I have my finger back there, is actually where everything comes through the firewall, and it's part of the wiring harness there. So I'm going to cut off this zip tie and electrical tape and try and get my zip tie on the outside of that so I don't have to follow this boot up. Okay, I ended up cutting a small slit in the boot that goes up behind the dash and ran my 2 wires out. So now I have the wires out here on the floor and we can finish wiring it up. Okay, I got the wires going through the firewall. Hopefully you can see that going through that plug back there. And now I think I'm going to mount the module to the top of the stock fuse box. Okay, got that attached with bolts. Turns out that flex tape is only single-sided, so I'm actually using Gorilla Tape to hold the other side of this down because the mounting holes don't line up with anything. So I'll be using these 2 bolts with some Gorilla Tape in addition to that to hold it to the top. Hopefully that works. Okay, so I'm about ready to mount the power wire here, and there's a lot of excess. So what I think I'm going to do is just shove the excess down behind here along with the breaker in there. And so the breaker will be as close to the fender well as possible and just kind of loose in there, but jammed in between the battery and the OEM fuse box. And then I'll just connect this right over there like that. Easy. Okay, got the negative connected to the negative, positive connected to the positive. My extra wire for the positive side is behind there, like I said. The negative wire I actually cut a little bit short, left myself a little bit of extra, and now I'm just going to clean everything up and make it look good. Okay, now I'm inside the car here looking at the fuse panel, and it looks like we have a ignition hot right there. And so that's what I'm going to be using to wire this up. Okay, I have the fuse jumper put in and all the wires are still dangling and hanging. So I'm going to clean all these up, but got the switch panel working. And so now I just got to figure out what accessories I'm going to wire up. But it looks pretty good. We can hold this down and it goes into setup mode, and then I can change the backlighting color. And when lights are wired up, you can actually change what the lights do. Strobe, emergency strobe, steady, all kinds of stuff. This is a pretty cool unit. Pretty excited about it. Okay, so to mask these wires, I'm going to go right up here and just push them back into this crack. And that doesn't look so bad. I can live with that. Okay, quick walk around to see what I did here. I went ahead and mounted the actual unit on top of the OEM fuse panel. I got the power routed in over here on this nut here. I just loosened the nut, put that on there. And same thing on the other side, just remove this nut, connect the ground wire, have this running up the body and around, and that comes down, goes back into the unit here. And then my switch wire and my panel wire for the inside go around, zip tied there, and then goes through the firewall on the inside, I went ahead and just tied the wires to the steering column here. It's not the prettiest thing, but it's hidden underneath the dash, so you can't really see it. And the switch panel wire goes right here, and then it just squishes right there behind the weather stripping, and that hides it just fine down to this point, and then you can push it behind this piece of plastic and it fits in there just fine. All right, and that's it for the install. Pretty easy. I don't have any accessories wired into it right now, but I do have a Viair constant duty air compressor that I'm going to be wiring into it soon. And I'll show you how that works once I get it all wired in. But for now, I got the Voswitch universal switch panel installed, and it was actually a really easy install. I think anybody could do it. You look at the wiring diagram and everything seems really straightforward, and really the hardest part of it is getting through the firewall and making your wires look good. So I say if you're thinking about getting this unit, get it. Please consider liking and subscribing. Thank you.